Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
No, man, I'm telling you, it's a 260-yard three-wood on a par 5, right. I mean, just off the green. I mean, 2 inches off the right there on the front. 260-yard three-wood. Man, you should have seen it. It was a bam, and it was hit from the rough. I had a good lie in the rough, and it was on the 17th hole. It was near the end of the round. It just could not have been better. Anyway, greetings, my friends. I'm just clearing the air here for somebody inside the studio confines. Rush Limbaugh back at it. Revved and ready. Telephone number 800-282-2882. And if you want to send an email, lrushbaugh@eibnet.us. I'll tell you what I'm going to do today. And I appeared on Fox News Sunday yesterday with Chris Wallace. It was a 12 to 13-minute segment. And I have always suggested to the Fox people, what you really ought to do is, have my segment and have it go as it goes. And then near the end of the program in your roundtable, bring me back for the roundtable to analyze what I said. How is that? It has never been done. And, of course, they've never taken me up on it. So you know what I thought I'd do? I thought I'd do it today right here on this program. Play the sound bites that we've chosen from my interview with Chris Wallace and then analyze them. And talk about what was good, what was only so-so, what could have been better, whether or not I disagree with what I said today. Anything can happen. So we're going to do that. Media today, a major theme of the program as I started separating things and organizing everything that I had put together. There is a sizable media stack here that we're going to spend some time on, as well as other substantive news. I just want to give you an example of how the media works. And I'm long past being mad about this because it's just the way they operate. And nothing is going to change them. So the way we deal with this is to point out the purposeful mistakes they make. Well, if they're purposeful, they're not mistakes. The purposeful things they do that occur in editing and in writing. Now, for example, yesterday, under intense grilling from Chris Wallace on Fox News, I made a point. You've heard me make it here, but I'm telling you, I don't see the point made on TV, so I hope you don't mind that I was a bit redundant. But I think it's absurd and preposterous to assert and to believe that the Russians affected voting. That the Russians hacked the election, and that meant that they changed the results. That did not happen, and nobody has alleged it, but they want you to think that's what they mean when they say the Russians hacked the election. The hacking, if there was any, was of computer networks, the RNC and the DNC. And the RNC, the penetration didn't work. Republicans have a lot of successful condoms on their networks, and the Russians were not able to penetrate. But the Democrats, their security had holes in it, and whoever it was, if it was the Russians, was able to hack. We got Podesta's emails. And the media is doing their best. And I, by the way, made it a point of defining the media yesterday on this program. It's not just everybody. It's the old monopolists. When I think of drive-by, it's ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Los Angeles Times, maybe throw USA Today in there. That's the media. It's not meant to include everybody, certainly not every blog, not every website, but those are the elements that I mean when I describe media. And they clearly, in their reporting, want viewers and readers to believe that the Russians determined the results of the election. That is their mission. And the point that I made yesterday was it's preposterous to assert this. It's ridiculous and absurd to think that the Russians could do it. And by the way, folks, nobody has alleged it. And furthermore, as I also said yesterday, the New York Times has run 2 stories on this whole thing, one last October, one last week. And they're essentially propaganda pieces. They're not news pieces. And in both of these pieces, both these stories, if you read deeply enough, the New York Times clearly states that none of their unnamed sources has any evidence the Russians did anything. All of this is supposition and conclusion of the nameless analysts, most of them in a deep state, working for Obama and Clinton. There are holdovers in there, and those are the people talking to journalists. And that's why I say the journalists are joined with the deep state Obama operatives in trying to destroy the Trump presidency. I don't think there's any doubt that they're trying to do this. They will deny it left and right, but there's no doubt they're trying to do it. And I'll tell you what, they destroyed Nixon, and ever since that, they've been trying to destroy every other Republican president. If not get them out of office, ruin their presidency. Take a look at every one of them. George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, Ronaldus Magnus. Now they're trying it on Trump. They never make one move of this kind toward any Democrat president. They spike news that could harm Democrat presidents. There's no question about this. The idea, however, that the Russians affected voting, nobody in the mainstream media is even asserting that. They wouldn't dare. So I, on Fox News Sunday, authoritatively confront them on this, and I point out that it's absurd and preposterous to think so. So here we go to the Politico. And the Politico, little brief story on this. And the headline of the Politico piece is, Limbaugh dismisses Russian influence on Trump's election as preposterous. Well, yeah, I guess you could say dismissed it. It's kind of like saying claimed or concludes, but Limbaugh dismisses. As a Limbaugh's out on an island all by himself that's shrinking because of climate change. And Limbaugh's dismissing this. Now, here's what they write. Rush Limbaugh says he doesn't buy the notion that Russia influenced the election of President Trump. Not what I said. Not what I said. Next paragraph. They quote me, it is preposterous to believe the Russians had any influence on the election, the conservative radio talk show host said on Fox News. That's not what I said. What I said was the Russians had no effect on the outcome. The Russians had nothing to do with votes. They don't even mention this in the story. So the Politico is positioning me as a contrarian. They're positioning me as saying the Russians didn't do anything. When I have acknowledged that the Russians hacked, the Chi-Coms hack, we hack. Everybody hacks everybody. It's part of espionage. I've never denied that. What I am authoritatively stating is that the Russians had nothing to do with who won this election. Nothing whatsoever. We've even got polling data of voters who said that what was revealed and released in the Podesta emails was interesting, but it wasn't a large factor in determining who people voted for. It made for interesting news. By the way, nobody's ever denied any of the contents of the Podesta emails. Not a shred of it, not a word of it's been denied. But it's a big leap to say Limbaugh dismisses Russian influence and not reference what I'm actually talking about. This is how they do it. So people didn't see the interview yesterday. Read the Politico. Limbaugh dismisses Russian influence on Trump's election as preposterous. What I said was, what I dismissed was that Russia determined the winner. Russia did not determine the winner of the election. And I'll tell you, this is important because that is the one thing driving everything else the media is doing. That one assumption, unstated, the media's never stated it. They leave it for you to conclude. Russia hacked the election. Russia influenced the election. They don't say the outcome. That's why I'm up challenging them on it, because they're leaving it to conclude. They're repeating over and over, Russians hacked, Russians influenced. The Russians did not determine who won the election, but that is what is driving every bit of this, because when you say that the outcome of the election, or when you imply the outcome of the election was determined by the Russians, then you're halfway home to declaring the Trump presidency illegitimate. the result of fraud, the result of cheating. And that then justifies everything else you do to take Trump out. If Trump benefited because the Russians helped him win, if Trump benefited because the Russians made sure Hillary lost, then that alone in the media world justifies everything else they do to destroy Trump. Because they think they're preserving democracy. Or no, because all this is a joke. They know this isn't true. This is the insulting part of this. They know they're making it up. They know they're extrapolating. They know exactly what they're doing. They are misleading. They are using misdirection. They're using assumption. They're using nameless sources that supposedly are authoritative in their own right because they come from intelligence community sources and so forth and so on. But you see, if Trump is not a legitimate winner, well, then his presidency is not legitimate, and therefore his agenda is not legitimate, and therefore his agenda ought not sail through, and therefore none of what he wants to do should happen because he wasn't really elected. And that's the foundation for everything else they're doing. It is the justification for everything else they're doing. The attacks on Trump, the attacks on Trump's supporters, the attacks on Trump's cabinet, the attacks here, the delay of Trump's, everything that's being done to stymie and stop Trump is taking place top of the foundation that it's all necessary because Trump shouldn't have even been elected. And that's the great unspoken thing that is providing the fuel for every other assertion of scandal or incompetence or what have you. And that's why I tried to make a big deal out of it yesterday. And the fact that the media here, at least the Politico, did not even quote me accurately, I think makes my point. And the fact I haven't seen anybody else in the media when they've reported on this quote me accurately either. And by the way, I'm not complaining. I'm not whining. I'm informing you. This is all part of the class on how to understand and analyze the media. And it is a classic teachable moment. Because if you take away the idea, if you take away the belief, if you take away the assumption, take away the conclusion, if you eliminate the fact that Trump's election was illegitimate, that Trump's victory shouldn't have happened, it was fraudulent. If you take that away, then the basis on which the media does nothing but attack and try to destroy Trump is taken away. This, that the Russians influenced the election, meaning the Russians determined that Hillary lost, that justifies whatever they need to do to get rid of Trump. And sure as shooting, here comes old Carl Bernstein, the father of the reporter who called Melania Trump a hooker, now saying that this guy's worse than Nixon. Trump's worse than Nixon. So you see, they've got Watergate is it for these. Watergate's why half the journalism business went into the business. Wow, you mean as a journalist I can destroy Republican presidents? Where do I go sign up? And that became, in the modern era, one of the things that good journalism becomes known for. Taking Republican presidents out. And it has been attempted now ever since 1988 when this program came along and the monopoly media had their monopoly blown up. They have been on a mission to prove that they still have the juice that they had when they were a monopoly. They're on a mission to prove they can still bend and shape public opinion and make it as easily as they did when they were a monopoly. And that has led and created to this partisanship and this partisan divide that exists out there with the media now an active political player. Which takes me to the second point. And I want to thank F. Chuck Todd of NBC for opening my eyes to this. For the longest time, I've been genuinely curious why it is that media people think they cannot be criticized. And they really do. They really think they can go out and research people, and they can dig up dirt from anybody they once passed, and they can broadcast it all over. And if somebody's life, somebody's marriage, somebody's relationship, somebody's kids get destroyed or ruined, fine and dandy. They can do all of that they want, but you turn it around and you start investigating your favorite journalist and to find out how many illegitimate kids he or she might have had in college, or how many DUIs they had, or how many communist sympathizer meetings they went to. Then all hell breaks loose, and they start squealing like stuck pigs. And you can't do that. We're journalists. I said, where does this come from? It's more than just hubris, and I finally found out. You know what it is, Mr. Snerdley? These clowns actually believe that since they are recognized in the First Amendment, that they have constitutional immunity. You can't criticize. Criticizing them is attacking the First Amendment. They really believe this. Criticizing them is akin to attacking the Constitution, and that's un-American. And that's why you hear these journalists, un-American to criticize, un-American for Trump to be destabilized, it's un-American for Trump to be going out there and trying to do damage to the media. We've got First Amendment protection. Well, so does the president, and the president happens to be mentioned in the Constitution before the media. The president's mentioned in Article 2. The media doesn't make it till the First Amendment. But yet the media thinks there's nothing bad about running around and trying to attack political figures and destroying them. No, I'm not. This is what it is, folks. They are so far gone, they really think that they are the last line of defense between freedom and democracy and tyranny. And attacking them and challenging their reputation is no more and no less than attacking the Constitution and trying to destroy America and democracy. That's what they think. That explains why you can't go after them. Anyhow, let's take another brief break here. We'll get started. Some of the audio sound. I'm going to review some of the other things that we have coming up here before we get to the audio. And, of course, your phone calls. So sit tight, back here before you know it. Look, the only thing the First Amendment does for the press is the same thing it gives to everybody else. They can say what they want to say. That's essentially what the First Amendment says for the press, like it says it for you and me. It singles them out and references them in terms of their importance, free and unintimidated, undocumented, whatever, unattached media. And nobody objects to that. But it does not grant them immunity from criticism. It does not grant them freedom to be disagreed with. It does not grant them freedom from opposition. They seem to think that it does. And I think it all falls under the notion of how really poorly constitutional education, American history education, has been for decades in this country, not to mention the kind of poison that's injected into the young skulls full of mush, populating journalism schools all over the United States. But it's it really, folks, it's the one thing that, as far as the media is concerned, justifies what they're doing. Now, as I say, you won't even get them to admit what they're doing. You won't even get them to admit they're trying to destroy Trump. They'll come up with some of, no. It is the job of the media to hold powerful people accountable. Yeah, right. What? Why doesn't that apply to powerful Democrats? And don't tell me that it does, because everybody knows you give them a pass. Each and every time something comes up with them, you cover for them. It's a joke. Give me another example. The media talking about Trump's rally on Saturday. Now, there were 9,000 people in the hangar up there at Melbourne. There were thousands of people that couldn't get in. There was a line a mile long starting at dawn on Saturday up in Melbourne. People wanted to get in. And I had spies up there. And my spies counted 500 to 700 protesters, even though they all knew Trump was going to be there. The difference is that the protesters knew there were going to be minimum 10,000 Trump people there. So the usual mob didn't show up. And one of the themes running through the drive-by media is that the Trump administration is so off-kilter. The Trump administration is such chaos that Donald Trump had to go out to an airplane hangar and do a campaign-style rally as a form of reset. Sorry, I have a totally different take on it. And I share this with you. I've talked to nobody at Team Trump. I've talked to nobody about this. I'm just using my common sense and intelligence guided by experience. There's two things here. First thing is, all Donald Trump has are his voters. That's it. He doesn't have any other support base out there like Obama had, the entire media and all these massive, huge donors and special interests. Trump doesn't have any of that. Trump's voters have seen a month of media that has had as its purpose to destroy the notion of a successful Trump presidency. Trump has to go over the heads of the media. It's why I did the press conference, 77-minute press conference, hailed as effective by me, and then he goes out and does the rally. And there's two things for the rally. One thing is to just go out, tell his people everything's cool, we're moving forward on things that you voted for, we're running smoothly here at the White House. Another thing that nobody's mentioned, he wanted to create, well, I don't know that they wanted, but I'm just telling you, they created pictures that counter all of the video of these supposed mobs of protesters that hate Trump. I mean, let's face it, the first month of Trump's presidency, every day, all we've seen is thousands of people supposedly organizing organically in towns and cities all across America, outraged, ticked off, mad that Trump is president because the Russians hacked the election and Trump's not legitimate. Trump shouldn't be there. Thousands, thousands, thousands. You've seen the pictures. Well, Trump's rally creates competing pictures which demonstrate that he still has the massive support, love, and popularity he had during the campaign. Another thing about the media, I said, they're so obtuse in a sense. They've been trying to dislodge Trump, to destroy Trump, get him off kilter ever since he got into the race. At what point are they going to decide that this may not work? The Access Hollywood video didn't work. All of the October surprise type things didn't work. Standard, ordinary, everyday politician destruction 101 stuff didn't work. It didn't work to the point that he got elected president over somebody who was considered to be a landslide shoo-in. So if what they were doing prior to the election didn't work, what makes them think it's going to work now? But I'm going to tell you something, folks. This is a new era, and you're looking at the way it's going to be every day for 4 years. Don't care. This is going to be the way Donald Trump is covered. Now, Trump's like every other human being, wants to be loved, wants to be liked, wants to be supported, and he really does want to unify the country. And this coverage is designed to make it look like that's not happening, won't happen, and even if it does happen, it's designed to make it look like it hasn't happened. And that's why I suggested that, make tracks, get this domestic agenda going, and he's going to have some confrontations up on Capitol Hill. We have to be honest that Capitol Hill is filled with Republicans and Democrats, but more importantly, they are establishment types. They're so-called best and brightest. They don't want Trump to have any kind of success or any more than he's had. Trump's success has already turned their world upside down. All during the 8 years of Obama and even years prior to that, if you go to Washington and New York and New York, L.A., San Francisco, the coastal elites, they were doing fine. Their incomes are constantly up. Their 401ks are doing well. They never worry about losing their jobs. The rest of the country, they didn't care what the circumstances were in the rest of the country. They were doing fine. Trump has come along and thrown that upside down. In fact, Glenn Reynolds has a really good piece on this in USA Today that I just scanned a couple paragraphs of, and I think this is what he's talking about. I'll look at it in greater detail further as the program unfolds. But it results in the fact that the instability that we're going to see here and that we are seeing is establishment versus outsider. And it was never going to be pretty because the establishment was never going to just stand aside and let you and me and any of the others, including Trump, people support him, just come in and take over all of these institutions. And that's why you're seeing the pushback from nameless sources in the deep state, in the bureaucracy, Obama and Clinton career appointees, and maybe even some Republican career appointees, hell, doing everything they can to hold on to what they control. And no matter that Trump won an election, doesn't matter as far as they're concerned. He's not the president, and what he says isn't going to go. And if we have to sabotage him, because we got friends in the media that'll help us, and this is what we're up against, and it's going to look like this. Now, I said for the next 4 years, I think you can quiet it down. I think if they push through this repeal of Obamacare, I think that'd be so huge. And I think if they really do something serious on immigration and tightening the borders, that's another thing. You know what immigration's come to be defined as? There's another thing I figured out. When you talk about immigration today, when the left talks about immigration, what they really mean is open borders and anybody who wants to come in gets in. And if you oppose that, that's where you're a bigot, that's where you're sexist, that's where you're racist and a phobe of some kind. And part and parcel of this is making people like you and me look like we are opposed to immigration totally. That makes us supremacists. That makes us bigots. They want to say we're opposed to all immigration. We're not. Nobody's opposed to immigration. Nobody denies the role immigration's played in the building of America. We're talking about legal immigration. We're being overrun. We're being overrun by people who are non-citizens. And we're having that called immigration. And then if you oppose that, you're a bigot, you're a sex, all these other horrible things. And nobody's talking about it. So these are the little mind games and word games and tricks that are being played. And it's all designed to weaken your support for Trump by making it just too hard. It's too hard and not worth it because it looks like they're never going to go away. But you get Obamacare repealed and replaced, and you get rid of the mandate, and you get rid of some of the taxes. And then you come along with tax reform and shoring up the border, and success is the sweetest revenge. And succeeding in this agenda that Trump laid out and talked about every day, multiple times a day, is the best thing he can do to calm down. In fact, folks, it's already starting to happen in various pockets. If you look carefully at the news, for example, there's a story here today that I have coming up in the stack where Washington Democrats want their insane base to stop talking about impeachment. They want their insane base to calm down. You're also seeing stories about more and more Democrats realizing that Trump won and he's going to be president for at least 4 years, and it's going to require getting rid of some of this childish emotion and getting with it. It's not massive, but there are beginning to be some cracks in the resistance, and it's primarily due to the fact that maintaining that emotional pitch of anger is simply not possible. It's not humanly possible. You'd have to keep recruiting new people, paying new people to act mad and ticked off, because after a while, it burns itself out from person to person. So they have to keep replenishing the supply of bought and paid for protesters to carry the and if it doesn't work, if it doesn't force Trump to change, if it doesn't force Trump out of office, if it doesn't make Trump apologize, if it doesn't change Trump at all, and it didn't change Reagan, if it doesn't change Trump, it loses some of its zeal as well. What else did I want to make before the break? Oh, if I've seen this once today, I've seen it 10 times. And I saw it last week. I commented on it then. Some in the media are saying it's really dangerous for Trump to be getting his news from cable TV. Do you not find this perplexing? This is largely today related to Trump's comments on Sweden at his rally in Melbourne on Saturday. And this is so great. Trump talks about Sweden. Can you imagine Sweden? Look at what's happening in Sweden. And the media is clueless. They don't know what, so they think Trump's insane and is simply making up terrorist attacks in Sweden. And there aren't any of those. And Trump never said terrorist attacks. What Trump saw was an interview on Tucker Carlson's show on Fox News where a guy has done a documentary and written a book about the rapidly increasing crime rate traceable to all of the migrants and refugees that Sweden has welcomed. And in fact, it's true. The migrant crime rate in Sweden is through the roof. So Trump sees it on TV, and he talks about it in his rally. He saw it on a credible show, Tucker Carlson Tonight, whatever it is, of Fox News. And the know-it-all media starts, and my even little tech buddies, the most arrogant, condescending group of kids I've ever run across, start laughing and making fun of Trump, and he's lost his mind. Maybe, have you heard the latest to explain Trump's attitude, by the way? Syphilis. No, the New Republic has a serious story from some shrink, psychiatrist, analyzing Trump from the media and concluding that he may have had syphilis as a boy, as a young man. Because all of Trump's characteristics and his mannerisms you can peg to people who have had syphilis in their lives. And they're dead serious about it. So anyway, the media's up there going nuts about, is Trump making it up again? My God, this guy's dangerous. He's just making it up. And then they found out what he was talking about. And you can see the stories today. Well, gee, maybe Trump was right. Maybe Trump was right after all about Sweden. But, and they throw their caveats in. But what about this idea that the media is saying it's dangerous for Trump to get his news from cable TV? Why would that be? Why would CNN, I said it was Poppy Harlow, I think, who said, oh, Greta, we love people watching our news network. We love the ratings and so forth. But isn't it a little dangerous for the president to get all of his news from cable? Why would that be? Do not stand behind what you do. What could possibly be dangerous about getting your news from CNN? Here we go, folks. Another obscene profit break. But we got lots more. And we're back. Rush Limbaugh, the cutting edge of societal evolution. Getting started on the phones with Lee in North Branford, Connecticut. Welcome. Great to have you here. Hi.
Well, it's a pleasure to be talking to you, Rush.
Thank you, sir.
I just want to. My issue is Chris Matthews yesterday. Chris Matthews threw you a softball, and I thought you kind of swung on it and missed. He talked about the Trump saying the media was our enemy. And my simplified answer to that is, you get a working guy works all day, comes home, him and the wife sit down to eat. After they sit down and watch television, and they watch one of the talking heads, whoever it might be. So they get the IRS, nothing to see here. They get Benghazi, well, that's a little bit, but that's a ho-hum. Ben Rhodes, they probably don't know who Ben Rhodes is. Jonathan Gruber's another one, not a clue who Jonathan Gruber is. To me, that makes them an enemy. They're not telling us the truth. They're telling us half-truths, and they're ignoring half the facts.
Yeah, but I sorry I swung and missed at a Chris Matthews softball. I wasn't on the field when he tossed it, so I don't swing and miss when Matthews throws, wild pitch or not. The reason I wanted to take your call is the Trump quote, "Press the enemy of the people." It's not what he said. Here's again. I guess this comes from my having a very good understanding of Donald Trump. He was talking about a subset of the media. If Trump had been talking about the whole media as the enemy of the state, that's not what the Trump quote said. He specifically was referring to the outlets putting out misleading themes about election hacking. You can't take these comments out of context. You have to look at what he said before he said this. So when he calls the press the enemy of the people, what was he talking about before it? He was talking about those elements of the media that continue to report things that aren't true. And that is, there is no evidence that the Russians hacked the outcome of the election. There is no evidence, because it didn't happen, no evidence that the Russians determined the winner of the election. You know, did you see, I'm watching Melania Trump here, she opened the rally. You know, I wouldn't have been surprised if I'd have seen a story later today, Melania Trump accused of plagiarizing the Bible, because she opened up with the Lord's Prayer. I wouldn't have been a bit surprised if somebody in the drive-bys had accused her of plagiarizing the Bible and trying to pass that off as something as her own. I know it's not in the Bible. That's my point. At any rate, Trump was being very clear about who he was talking, but he wasn't being very clear, I guess, because so many people misunderstood it. If you know what he was talking about beforehand, and then you get to this comment where Trump refers to the media as the enemy of the state. That's why I said yesterday on Fox News he was talking about the media, the enemy of Trump. And Trump was elected on a very specific agenda that he hid from no one. Trump made his agenda public more than any presidential candidate ever has. Truthfully, by the way. And he elected president on that basis. Trump was given a mandate. Trump was elected on the basis of substance. And so the media that's coming along and trying to undermine this, he was not. Had he been talking about the whole media, had he been trying to make the point that the whole media is the enemy of the state, then you might be able to claim that he represents a danger in shutting down the whole. But he doesn't want to shut down the media. The truth is he loves it. The truth is he loves the back and forth. He's challenged by it, doesn't want to shut him down. All of this is so much knee-jerk paranoia. No, I said it is in the Bible. I was being snarky. I had a guy authoritatively try to tell me, "What the Lord's Prayer's not in the Bible." I said, "Yes, it is." "No, it's not." I said, "It doesn't change the point." Anyway, the left is trashing Melania Trump for reciting the Lord's Prayer at the rally. I'm not kidding about that. Hang in, folks. Back before you know it. No, look, folks, calm down. It was yesterday. It might have been set. It had to be. It had to be yesterday. It was after Trump's rally on Saturday, and I ran a joke by people. I said, you watch, somewhere in the media, somebody's going to accuse Melania Trump of plagiarizing the Bible because she recited the Lord's Prayer. And I had said, well, that's all good and well, but the Lord's Prayer, I don't think it's in the Bible. And I said, yes, no, it's not. So we dropped it and went on, and I mistakenly represented what this was all. The Lord's Prayer, Matthew chapter 6, verses 9 through 13. Anyway, it clouds the whole point. Here we are. I'm not trying to explain a joke. When you have to explain a joke, it's never works. It was a great freaking line, and it's being destroyed here by this silly once and for all. For the record, I fully, the Lord's Prayer is in the Bible. I can't help it if somebody tried to tell me it's not. Anyway, welcome back, folks. It's great to have you. L. Rushball behind the golden EIB microphone. Our telephone number is 800-282-2882. The email address, lrushball@eibnet.com. I really hope, we're looking at potential candidates here for national security advisor. I really hope it's Bolton. I think John Bolton. A lot of people have criticisms of Bolton because he's what would be the best way to characterize the criticisms? They say he's an interventionist, that if there's any trouble in the world, we should make a beeline and go there, and that he believes in nation building, i.e., turning Iraq into an American-like democracy. And he believes all this stuff. And I think he's moderated some of that based on, he used to believe those things. I don't doubt that, don't challenge that. But the Iraq experience and a number of other things, I think, are things that I'm just guessing based on things I've heard Bolton say since then. He's on TV a lot. The thing I like about Bolton is he is a known nonsense, doesn't put up, he doesn't suffer fools. He's a patriot. He loves America. He knows who our enemies are. He's got no problem identifying militant Islamic terrorism as an enemy. Do you realize that is not a universally held belief, and it's not just among Democrats. There are people throughout the Washington establishment who do not want that to be in any way true. It upsets their worldview. Folks, as far as the elites are concerned, the world is fine. The only problem in the world is Donald Trump. As far as the elites are concerned, the people at the IMF, the people at the World Bank, the people at the United Nations, the people at the European Union, the people at NATO, all these people, they're fine. They're hunky-dory, everything with Obama in there and bureaucracies growing and globalism on the march and the shrinking and transformation of the United States of America. They were happy and fine. They're rich. They're wealthy beyond your imagination. They have positions of power and esteem throughout the world in this elite establishment culture. And Trump coming along, representing the common man. I mean, Trump's election is all about the people I describe as the people who make America work. They're characterized sometimes as the white working class, other times as blue collar, middle class, lower middle class. These are the people whose lives have not been getting better in the last 15 or 20 years, while all of the elites have. And the elites desperately want to hold on to all that. And calling Islam militant Islamic terrorism, no. We don't need that. That's just upsetting things. Everything's fine and dandy. We don't need to provoke these things. And they look at all of the migration. It is not a problem. Let Europe take them. Let these Western democracies, because these people that I'm talking about are never going to be impacted by any of these policies. They're never affected by illegal immigration. They're not affected by, they don't live where refugees and the sort are located. And they get away with being perceived as compassionate and open-minded and tolerant and so forth. And they have presided over the stagnation of the middle class. Now, in the United States, the upward mobility of the middle class has been one of the things that set us apart from anywhere in the world. And it's one of the reasons why so many people in the world want to come to America, is the upward mobility of the middle class, the ability to improve, to accrue wealth, to do better for your kids than you were able to do for yourself, and this kind of thing. And that has been stagnating. There aren't increasing wages. There aren't increasing standard of living in the last 15. That's why Trump was elected. That's why Trump represents a problem to all these people. And the media considers themselves part of that august group. And Trump's just upsetting everything. You know, Trump's coming is upsetting all of the systems in place. He's upsetting all the strategies that have been implemented. He's upsetting what these people think is world peace. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is not supposed to be solved. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is what allows foreign policy and Middle Eastern bureaucrats to continue to be Middle Eastern bureaucrats, and what allows them to continue to work in the so-called peace process. The last thing they want is peace. It would be the end of the peace process. If peace triumphs, what would there be for them to do? This is a slightly generic explanation of all of this. But anyway, I think Bolton is not that. Now, I think Bolton is probably more interventionist than Trump. I mean, Trump has made a big deal in the campaign about how we don't need to be going everywhere in the world. We don't need to be wasting our money. And to the extent that we do, the people we're trying to help need to pay their fair share. We don't need to be going broke investing in all these different far corners of the world when there's no American benefit to it, is what Trump has said. And people have applauded it, thought it was great. But to the establishment elites, this is a call to arms. This is a direct attack on them personally and professionally, their stewardship of the world. And they're not just going to sit idly by and let it happen. So that's in a nutshell, the world in which we find ourselves now. So we need national security advisors and a national security council. We need somebody that's pro-American, that is going to support Donald Trump, that has basically a similar worldview. And I think as I say, Bolton's probably more interventionist than Trump. But everything changes. Trump, during the campaign, says one thing about intervening, but as president, different realities hit you. He'd probably be a little bit more interventionist than he thought. Bolton's probably a little bit less than he used to be. It could be a happy marriage. And Bolton was a Reagan-esque figure at time in terms of believing in peace through strength, which Trump also professes. I don't know how much he's thought it through, but in terms of a philosophy, Bolton is full-fledged behind peace. In other words, build up the military in the hopes you don't have to use it, but if you do, kick ass. If you have to use it, it better be the military that can beat anything comes at us. But you hope you never have to. He's not somebody who wants to be permanently in conflict with people, but if it happens, he's willing to openly, honestly admit who it is, why they're doing it, and what needs to happen to shut them down for America to win. So I just throw my name in the list here as supporting Bolton for the gig, and that's not a slight on any of the others whose hats are also in consideration. Names are also in consideration. Look at this. Hill.com. Americans brimming with optimism on the economy. I saw the headline. I must tell you, even I, El Rushbo, just to show you how hard this is, even I was surprised. Because, look, we can't escape the past month of media coverage. And one of the efforts the media has been engaging in is trying to present a picture of Americans unhappy they elected Trump, unhappy they voted for Trump, now pulling their hair out. Oh, no, what do we do now? And that's not an accurate picture of America. It's a picture of the protests that we've been shown. It's not a picture of America. America is actually pretty optimistic. Trump supporters are as avidly for him as they have always been. And this story is actually a poll from Harvard. Yeah, the Harvard-Harris poll. A strong majority of Americans say the U.S. economy is running strong. Most believe the upward trend will continue under Trump, according to a Harvard-Harris poll provided exclusively to The Hill. The survey found 61% view the economy as strong, 39% to say it's weak. A plurality, 42% said they believe the economy is on the right track, 39% say it's on the wrong. That is such a stark contrast to even back in October, November, when it was 70% thought we're on the wrong track, 73% thought we're on the wrong track with Obama. Major reversal here. Mark Penn, who's a co-director of the Harvard-Harris poll, and he's a Democrat pollster, but he's polled for the Clintons, hasn't he? Don't frown at me like don't tell me this guy's a Republican. Next, you're going to tell me the Lord's Prayer is not in the Bible, right? Am I wrong about Mark Penn? I think he's worked with the Clintons. Anyway, he did the poll. He said it's really surprising turnaround given how negative voters have been about the economy since 2009. But jobs remain the number one issue, and a lot of the change in sentiment anticipates tax cuts and infrastructure programs. That means a lot of this optimism anticipates the Trump agenda. And again, it is why I continue to urge the Trump administration to get going on it. I mean, look, it's all fine and dandy to stop the TPP. It's all fine and dandy to say you're going to continue to do what you're going to do NAFTA. And it's all fine and dandy to keep talking about the wall. That's crucial, immigration. But, man, repealing Obamacare. And look at the differing. There's a story. It ran yesterday. It's on Drudge. Let me find it. We'll get it exactly. Prospects of quick Obamacare repeal sinking fast. Drudge links to a story like that at least once a day. Different story. Prospects of Obamacare withering away. Prospects for Obamacare repeal and replace dwindling rapidly. Every day you get one of those. And then Paul Ryan calls a congressional press conference and goes out there and says, no, we're on the case here. This is going to happen in March. We're going to roll it out in March. Trump echoes it. Rand Paul comes in. Damn right, we're going to get rid of this as quick as we can. So what's the truth? Well, where are these stories coming from that the prospects for repealing Obamacare just dwindling away rapidly. I haven't done this yet, but let me click on the link here and see just exactly where this takes us. It's a Washington Post. Hot damn. Who in the world would have ever thought that? Yeah, Mark Penn ran Hillary Clinton's campaign for president in 2008. He was also her pollster, and guess what? She still owes him money. Hillary Clinton still owes Mark Penn money all the way back 2008. He was chief strategist for her in her 2008 presidential campaign. I don't know that he worked on this last campaign because she still hasn't paid him from 2008 when she lost, of course, to Barack Hussein. Oh, here's another story, ladies and gentlemen. I told you there's a little tiny stack that's starting to develop that's showing cracks in the so-called resistance to El Trumpo. And it's, again, from thehill.com. It's a poll, and it's from the same poll, the Harvard-Harris poll, that shows optimism on the economy. Get this. Americans want Democrats to work with Trump. A strong majority of Americans say that Democrats should look to cooperate with Trump to strike deals, according to the inaugural Harvard-Harris poll provided exclusively by The Hill. Same poll that found all of this optimism on the economy. 73% of voters want to see Democrats work with the president. Only 27% who said that Democrats should resist Trump's every move. Again, this is Mark Penn, a Hillary campaign pollster and operative that she hasn't paid. Now, that 73% number is the almost exact number of people who thought the country was headed in the wrong direction in the last months of the Barack Hussein regime. Now, this is striking. Now, once again, by the way, the streets of American cities just magically happen to have a bunch of Trump protesters out there today. Just magically. I mean, they're just out there. And the pictures are from helicopters. And it's made it look like tens of thousands of Americans are out protesting Donald Trump over the supposed latest Trump outrage, whatever it might be. And again, vast majority of this stuff is bought and paid for by, it's not a cliche to say it, it sounds it, it's George Soros, and I'm sure Obama and his Organizing for Action, which is an uptake on organizing for Obama has a community organizing group, 250 offices. They're organizing all this. There is an attempt at sabotage and a shadow government made up of Obama embeds and Clinton embeds in the bureaucracy and these Organizing for Action offices that are organizing all these protests with mass-produced protest signs with fill-in-the-blank issues. And these people are paid. And they recruit. We know this because it's been admitted to by the people that run these operations. Here is Shayna in Springfield, Oregon. I'm glad you called. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Rush. It's an honor to talk to you.
Thank you very much.
Taking my call. I was calling just to say I am so very thankful to you for your Rush Revere books. At the beginning of the school year, our son was hit by a drunk driver. He suffered a really serious skull fracture, and he's had a really long road to recovery. And your books have been such a blessing to our family. He has enjoyed them. He has had to sit still, which he hates to do, but we have helped pass many hours by listening to the books and re-listening to them, and he's gone to sleep listening to them when he's had trouble sleeping. And I just wanted to say how thankful that we were to you for writing them and for inspiring our children to remember America and to love America.
I just am blown away that you would take the time to call and tell me this. I don't know. This is really sobering things to hear, and I can't thank you enough.
Well, it gets even better because he is just an amazing kid. One of the things that has happened as a result of this accident is he's lost the hearing in one of his ears. And we've been hoping and praying as he heals that it would come back. And we found out this week that he's not ever going to hear again in that ear. And he was so sad, and he had a few days of just feeling like it was more than he could handle, and there were going to be just too many obstacles for him in life as an adult and as a man. And of course, we kept encouraging him and trying to focus our thoughts on the blessings that we have of still having him with us. And he had the most beautiful light bulb moment. I just had to call and share with you. We were talking through these things, and there were tears and sadness, and all of a sudden he said, "Hey, Mom, Rush has a hearing loss, too." And I said, "That's right, buddy, he does." And he said, "Nothing stops him from being successful with a hearing loss, so I can be successful, too." And I just wanted to thank you for being a public figure that can inspire children. I'm very grateful.
Well, you have you've really reached me here. This is incredible. Look, I've got just a few seconds. Can you hang on through the break? Because I want to talk to you about your son's hearing challenges. Just some things that I have learned since I lost mine that'll be helpful. Don't hang up. And we are back with Shana in Springfield, Oregon. Shana, pardon me? Pardon me, what did you just say? Shana, are you there?
I'm here. Sorry, yes, I'm here.
Okay, good. I'm just going to say you've got us crying our eyes out here with this the story of what's happened to your son, and I wanted to talk to you about your son's hearing loss. How old is he?
He just turned 13.
And you've been told by doctors that he definitely has lost hearing in one ear.
Correct.
And it's not retrievable.
Permanent nerve damage.
Permanent nerve damage, and
yes.
So he has no residual hearing whatsoever.
No, he can hear some sounds, like screechy kind of sounds, and he can hear some sounds that are, if they're super magnified, he can hear them, but not in any kind of a normal range.
So does he know when somebody's talking to him in that ear?
No.
Can he hear shower water, like water running in the shower, anything sounds like that?
The only sounds he says he hears are like screeching sounds and ringing sounds in that ear.
Okay, so that may be tinnitus or tinnitus, depending on how some people pronounce it. Look, I lost my hearing in both ears in 2000, and mine was an autoimmune attack. And I use cochlear implants. But things have advanced so much. I was 0 too. I mean, literally nothing. I didn't even hear screeching or any of that. I mean, a nuclear bomb can go off, and I wouldn't hear it if I weren't wearing my cochlear implants. But they have gotten so much better. You know, I only had one ear done initially, and I had the second ear done 2 or 3 years ago, and it's just made a huge world of difference. Your son will be able to regain hearing in his ear. It'll be bionic or electronic of some kind. I don't want to supersede what doctors have told you, but there are all kinds of possibilities.
Right. I think he's going to have to get a hearing aid. That's kind of what we have come to understand.
Well, there's nothing to fear about whether it's a cochlear implant. You can tell him that people think I am a spy and a secret agent because they think the implants I'm wearing on my ear are secret communication devices to powerful people in the CIA or something.
That's what he said. Do I have to get the kind like the CIA, Mom? And I said, I don't think so, buddy, but that would be cool.
Well, you know, something I never had a problem with, and it differs from I never had a problem with the way they make me look. I mean, for me, being able to hear was if I couldn't continue to work. So I didn't care what it took. I don't have vanity in that regard. But it doesn't change your appearance anyway, except from the side, and it's to me it's not a factor. Other people, you know, have different concerns, but the thing that you I think be very confident of, and I'm not trying to supersede doctors. I don't know the nature of your son's medical condition in his ear, but even for people that have lost it all, like I did. My audial nerve was still functioning enough to be able to carry information, his minds get generated by bionic electrodes that are implanted in my brain rather than by the hair cells that everybody else hears with. They're microscopic, and there's hundreds of thousands of them in the ear, and mine, those hundreds of thousands have been replaced by essentially 8 electrodes. So he'll be able to function and get by. It's not, just tell him it's not something to fear.
Right. I was just so blessed that he was inspired by you, and that he had that moment of himself of being like, hey, wait a minute. Instead of me looking at this as something that is going to stop me from doing what I want to do, look at Rush. Nothing stops him. He's so successful. Mom, I'm going to be okay.
Let me tell you something. Honestly, that's just incredible. I am so happy that he was informed enough to draw that conclusion and some inspiration from it, because I never hear that. I never hear that at all. And I think it's political in nature.
Tell you.
But that's dramatic. That is profound, and I can't tell you. That almost makes losing my hearing worth it. If it's providing inspiration to your son to withstand what happened to him.
Thank you. I just thought it was amazing that you've done something so great with Rush Revere, and that impacted him in such a way that your own personal struggles became an inspiration to him, which was wonderful to me.
Well, I tell you what I want you to do. When we hang up here, I want you to stay on the line, and we want to send what is your son's first name?
His name is Noah.
His name Noah. Okay, we want to send him some little goodies from the Rush Revere Time Travel Adventures world.
He'll love that.
And a couple of other things. So I really appreciate this. And you're inspiring in your own way, because this all happened because of a drunk driver. And I'm sure you questioned. You had all kind. Why us? Why this? You went through stages of anger, and then you finally had to deal with it. Doesn't sound at all like you have any bitterness about this at this stage, and that's a true testament to you.
Well, it's something that I definitely wrestle with, but it isn't something that I want to define my son's life. So we have to learn how to move past it.
Well, that's great. That is you can't believe how mature that is. Wouldn't you say you're not something you want to be defined? You're refusing to be a victim. And I can't tell you how wonderful that is. I cannot tell you. Just for you and for Noah, to not look at this as making you both victims. That's going to mean so much as you go forward. I can't tell you how much, but that's fabulous.
Well, I just wanted to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your books, and just tell you what a special place to have in our hearts for us.
Well, you have a place in ours as well, and we want to, in a small little token type of way, show you that. So hang on so we get your address. And
thank you, Rush.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Shana. I'm really grateful that you were able to get through today. All the thousands of people trying to call here, you made it through, so I appreciate that too.
Thank you so much. You have a great day.
You do the same. Well, I have to go to commercial break here, folks. I'll tell you what when we come back, I'm going to do what I promoted at the top of them. We're going to start the audio sound bites of me on Fox News Sunday yesterday, and I'm going to analyze me and comment on what I said. Maybe criticize some of it. Doubt that'll happen. And maybe add to it. One little news blurb before we go to the break. You ready for this? Headline says it all. It's NBC News. Ready? President Trump officially won't be the shortest-serving U.S. president. What does that tell you was on NBC's mind? That maybe they were going to be able to get rid of him? And let me be generous. That maybe Trump was going to destroy his own presidency in record time. But right here it is. This President's Day, as thousands prepare to swarm the streets for Not My President's Day rallies. By the way, who started those? Where did these Not My President's Day rallies get started? Hello, Mr. Soros. Hello, Mr. Obama. Hello, Mrs. Clinton. As thousands swarm the streets for Not My President's Day, the president will celebrate a milestone. He's reached his 32nd day in office. That small victory means that despite the demands of his detractors, President Trump will not have the shortest term in the Oval Office. So they've been counting. They're a little bit frustrated here, I'm sure. You could probably throw a damn it at the end of the headline. The honor of president serving the shortest term is William Henry Harrison, the 9th president, died from pneumonia just 32 days into his presidency on April 4th, 1841. He's also the first president to die. Wait a minute. No, first president to die in office, not only first president. Okay, taking a break. We will be back right after this. Hey, Shana, one more, I don't know, call it a piece of advice or just a thought that I meant to share with you that slipped my mind because I was so moved by what you had said. What I have found is that hearing loss, hearing challenge, deafness, whatever, is the only disability where the person suffering from it is blamed. And by this I mean if you see somebody who cannot walk in a wheelchair, you never say, I know you can walk, get up. Don't make us push you around all day. If you run across somebody who's blind, you don't say, just try harder. I know you can see, you're just faking everybody out. But with people who have hearing loss, it's amazing. People, because nobody, I mean, you can imagine not being blind. You can close your eyes, you can imagine not being able to walk and not. But hearing loss, you can't imagine. You cannot create deafness. You can cover your ears, you get plugs, you can get whatever, but you can hear something. You cannot imagine total deafness, and people who can hear cannot relate to people who can't. I mean, I myself am guilty of this. My father, late in his life, was losing his hearing, and we just got sick and tired of saying, what? Of him saying, what? What? And he's not even trying to hear us. He's not even trying to listen to us. And I have since learned that it actually is the case. People think that if you just try harder, if you pay more attention to them, if you weren't looking around elsewhere while they're speaking, or if you were whatever, that you can hear what they're saying. And then there are times where you can hear them and people think you can't. See, I know you can hear. I know you can hear. You're just faking it. You're just using it, then I have to talk to us. And there is a place, one of the golf clubs that I go to, giant restaurant. And that room can be empty with just us at a table for 4. And that room sounds like 1,000 people are in it to me. And I for the longest time, it was frustrating because I literally couldn't talk to people at my table. And we were the only ones in there. And I looked around, and it was the noise being made by the bartender just putting ice in glasses and clinking silverware around and moving bottles and stuff. The acoustics of that bar were making that room to me sound like 1,000 people were in it. And if I took out my implant on my right side, it went away, and I was able to converse with people at the table. But they couldn't relate to it. I mean, what do you mean you can't hear us? So we're the only ones in here. They didn't hear the noise at the bar the way I did, the way my implants were making it sound to me. But it is the case. It's the only disability where, and it's not people trying to do it, it's just they can hear and can't relate to not being able to. And so that's something to warn your son of, Shane, to be patient with people because they can't relate to it. And he can hear in one ear anyway. That's half the battle. Steve in yeah, you know what? We're going to take the call. We'll move back the analysis of my Fox News soundbites to the top of the next hour. Here's Steve in Pinehurst, North Carolina. Great to have you on the program, sir. Hello.
Hi, Rush. How you doing? Thanks for taking my call.
You bet. Great to have you here.
Yeah, that last call, I had a lump in my throat. God bless that woman.
Isn't it
and
amazing?
Thank you. You're quite a role model for her to help her out like that. My question to you, Rush, was basically going back to the Russians hacking the election. And I get confused on this. If the Russians wanted to hack the election, why did Hillary win the popular vote? I just don't understand that. If they're going to hack something, they're going to hack it all the way and completely wipe the slate clean and just take the whole win.
Well,
why would they let
in
partial?
fact, I made that very point in a slightly different way. I made it yesterday on TV, and I've made it here, too. I've pointed out that if the Russians wanted Trump to win and the Russians were hacking the election, then why did Hillary win the popular vote? If the Russians hacked the election and Hillary got more votes than Trump, why don't everybody run around claiming that the Russian hack succeeded? Because when it comes to the Electoral College, there's no way to hack that. The Electoral College and knowing what states are going to be needed and what candidate's going to need which states, and to go out and that's why I say this whole thing and what your question is illustrating. It's impossible. It would be impossible. You couldn't even hack the machines. The machines are not connected to the internet. But even if you did that, there is no way that anybody could hack is the word here, but sabotage the outcome of casting and counting ballots in all of these different states that are relevant. The idea, that's why I say it's preposterous. It's beyond preposterous. It is insane to believe that a foreign government could actually, by virtue of techno-espionage, tamper with the casting and counting of ballots. And that's why nobody is alleging that that's what's happened. That's why they're using a linguistic ruse. They're saying Russians hacked the election. Russians tampered with the election. They want you to fill in the blank. They want you to think that means the Russians didn't want Hillary to win. They want you to believe that Trump's election is fraudulent and illegitimate. And that, again, is the foundation for every other attack that comes after that. Every assault on Trump's agenda is justified by the fact the Russians tampered with the election. Russian tampered with the election is translated into Trump should not have won. That's the conclusion they want you to draw. If the Russians tampered with the election and everybody's unhappy with the outcome, it must mean everybody wanted Hillary to win and everybody expected Hillary to win. And the polls said that Hillary was going to win. And then all of a sudden Trump wins, and sizably. So here comes the story, Russians tampered. We got 2 New York Times stories quoting unnamed sources confirming that the Russians tampered with the election. But they never say the Russians had anything to do with votes, casting them or counting them. They want you to fill in that blank. And if they can sell that, then they can sell as justified and worthwhile every other assault on what Trump wants to do, because he shouldn't be the one doing it. Therefore, it's unjustified, illegal even, maybe, and unwarranted. Back in a second. I did not say it's not possible to steal elections. I said that you couldn't do it by hacking. You can't hack the counting process. You can't hack with computers the voting process. You can certainly steal elections. Talk to Al Franken about it. You find votes in the trunk of a car. That's not what they're alleging with the Russians. Righto, here we are back at it. I promise you we're going to get the audio sound bites here and the analysis of said sound bites. There we go. Cool. Here's the phone number, folks. You want to be on the program the remaining hour today. 800-282-2882. If you want to send an email, lrushbo@eibnet.us. Here's another, I said there was a small but expanding stack in my show prep today of stories that that indicate some of the pizzazz is beginning to wane, as it were, from the collective anti-Trump energy out there. And it is. And I've given you three examples so far today, and here's the next. And this is from our old buddies at Breitbart News. And the headline, LGBT anti-Trump protest in D.C. fizzles bigly. Even on a beautiful day with temperatures in the high 60s, organizers could not muster a decent-sized protest turnout against Donald Trump at an LGBT event on Sunday outside the Trump International Hotel, a few blocks from the White House. A group of little more than 24 protesters. Now, you imagine this. Here the call goes out for a swarm, a throng of people to show up. And supposedly shouldn't take much because there's such hatred for Trump out there. There's such animus for Trump out there that should have been just a snap of the fingers. And you get thousands of people to show up. A group of little more than 24 protesters danced, kissed, held signs, and played music as an almost equal number of photographers captured the spectacle of social justice warriors who lacked any coherent message except free-floating contempt for the president who took office less than 1 month ago. Now, I realize saying this could just stoke them to go out and reignite themselves and find more energy. But remember, all of this has a purpose. And the longer it goes without any objective being realized, then it's human nature is human nature. At some point, some in the group start saying, what are we doing here? What are we accomplishing here? By the way, I want to know something. Can anybody tell me what has Donald Trump ever done to offend the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender crowd? What has he ever done? I mean, it was Obama who came out and was originally anti-gay marriage, and then when it became politically expedient, flipped.